Hey, this is Waylon from Swiftwood Bows. Welcome to part 7. I've got my bow strung up with my new little recurves in there, and tiller's looking pretty good. It's always amazing to me how much extra tension just flipping the tips like this can add. It wasn't that hard to string the bow when it was straight, but man, it was a bear to get it strung with these hooks in there. I actually had to take a little bit more wood off just to get it within the realm of reasonableness to string the bow. So as I'm looking at the tiller, it's looking pretty good. I think I've got a little bit too much of a positive tiller here. I think I need to weaken this bottom limb a little bit more, and as I'm looking at the bend here, it's doing a lot of its bending right here, and it flattens out here in the outer limb. So I'm going to be doing some scraping out here to make this bend a little bit more robust and not so concentrated. The shape of the upper limb is looking pretty good. It's a pretty consistent bend going through here, and the taper feels good. It's just feeling a little thick out here, so I'm going to take some scrapes off of that to fix the tiller of the bottom limb and to get the bottom limb working a little bit more to match the top limb. I do want some positive tiller, but I'd say that's probably about a ½ an inch, and I want more of like 3/8 to a ¼ inch positive tiller. So I'm going to work on that, and then we'll string it back up and see how it's looking. I'm not back up to full brace height yet. I've got it strung a little bit lower than full brace height just because of how much tension is on it with the new recurves. I don't want to damage the bow, and I also don't want to put so much pressure on it that it's pulling out the recurves, because you can hear it's quite taut right now. Alright, well, I'll get scraping and we'll check back in a little bit. I took some scrapes off of this outer third of the lower limb, and now I've got a little bit more of a graceful bend here. Also took some scrapes off of the top limb to keep the balance. Got the bottom limb weakened a little bit more, and so when I use my ruler to check, this is about 6 inches here, and it's about 6 3/8 here. So I've got my 3/8 inch positive tiller. The overall bend of the bow is looking a lot more balanced and healthy. I feel like this, and I've got the brace height up to pretty much full brace, and so I'm feeling pretty good about how things are looking right now. I like the shape of the brace. There's a few little places that I feel like I need to tweak, but it's really pretty minor, and so this is a good place to be when you're making your bow. When you've got it at full brace, the tiller's looking pretty good, and you still have lots of draw weight left. This is where you want to be to get your bow to the draw weight that you want it, because I still have lots of material to work with, and I'm in good shape for my tiller. I mean, as I pull this out, I might see some small problems in the tiller as I go along, but really, if the bow's looking pretty good at brace, at full brace, then chances are the tiller's going to look pretty good all the way out to full draw. And it's not something that I'm going to take for granted and just pull it out without checking as I go along, but it puts me in a really good place to start with. So at this point, I'm going to be taking smooth, continuous strokes with my scraper off one limb. I'm going to count my strokes. So for example, maybe I'll do 60 good hard pulls off of this limb, and because the limbs are balanced like I want them, I'm going to do 60 good hard pulls off of this limb. I'm going to string it back up, and I'm going to check the brace again to make sure everything is still feeling balanced. And then, I mean, it's still so hard, I don't really see a whole lot of point in putting it up on the tree yet. But soon I think I'll get it up on the tree and I'll start teasing it out. I want to get it out to my intended draw weight of 60 pounds as soon in the process as I can. I don't want to wait too long to get it out. If the tiller's looking good and you trust the stave that you've got, don't wait too long to get it out to its full draw weight, because if you're kind of pussyfooting along with getting out to your full draw weight, you're going to end up with a bow that's too weak. By the time you're ready to try to pull it out, it's going to be too late. So I'll probably take about 60 scrapes off of each limb, and I'll kind of show you what that looks like. I won't show you every time I take wood off, but we'll take 60 strokes off of each limb, string it back up, and then I think we'll put it on the tree and see how we're doing in the weight department. Alright, I'm going to take 60 scrapes off of this side and then 60 off the other. This is what it looks like when I'm just reducing the weight of the bow without trying to change the tiller in any one spot. Alright, that was 60 scrapes. Alright, let's get this strung up and put it on the tillering tree and see how things are looking there. Okay, I've got my bow up on the tree, and we're going to see how far we can get it safely here. So I want to share with you a couple of important rules of thumb when I'm using the tillering tree, or bending a bow at all for that matter while I'm in the tillering process. There's two rules that we have to follow. We never pull past our intended draw weight of around 60 pounds, regardless of what the draw length is. And the other rule is, and this rule trumps the first rule, is that we're never going to pull past a problem that we see. So if I'm pulling on this bow and I notice that there's clearly an issue going on with the tiller, I'm going to stop pulling regardless of how far I've gotten on the draw weight, and I'll take the bow off and I'll fix the problem before I pull any more, because if there's a problem in the tiller, that means that there's going to be an area of the bow that's under too much stress, and I need to alleviate that stress. Otherwise that area is going to fail, and best case scenario it's going to take some set, and worst case scenario it'll break. So let's pull this out and see. So right now that is 45 pounds at 16 inches. So let's see what it's at. It's 17 inches. At 17 inches, it's a little closer to 50 pounds. 18 inches, about 53. So let's just kind of go back and forth a little bit here at 18 inches just to make sure that we're not seeing any problems in the tiller. To me, it's looking pretty good. Not seeing any major problems. The bend is looking pretty even. I'm going to go out to 19 inches. That's at about 55 pounds. And actually, I need to be adding a couple pounds to account for the weight of the scale. So that's more actually at 19 inches. That's about probably 57 pounds. So I'm pretty close. Probably there at 20 inches. I'm at my intended draw weight. So I feel like that's a good place to be in this stage of the tillering process. So as I'm pulling it out to 20, I'm checking the tiller with my eyes, and I'm liking the way that it's bending. So that means that I've got 8 more inches to go at 60 pounds. So that means that I've got some scraping to do. But it's a good place to be. I've got plenty of material left on the bow. My tiller's looking pretty good. That doesn't mean that I can get complacent. I'm still going to be finding every opportunity I can to improve the tiller, making sure that it's not too stiff coming out of the fades, making sure that there's no little weak spots or stiff spots. All the way out to full draw, I'm going to be trying to perfect the tiller, even as I'm reducing the weight. All right, back to scraping. I'm gonna keep taking some weight off the bow, creeping closer to my final draw weight of 60 pounds at 28 inches. And it's important that you don't try to do it all at once. This has to be a somewhat gradual process. If I rip a bunch of wood off of this, for one thing I could overshoot my draw weight, and for another thing I could mess up the tiller and not have enough material left to correct it with. So it's easy to want to get in a hurry at this point because you're getting close. And of course you want to be able to shoot your bow, but you have to be patient, and you have to be methodical, and you have to do a lot of checking. And don't forget about using your hands to feel the tiller, or to feel the taper. At this point you should have it where it's pretty perfect, but I like to always be using my hands to verify what my eyes are seeing. If things are looking good on the tillering tree, then they should be feeling good to my hands. And if there's something that my hands are telling me that my eyes aren't seeing, I want to get to the bottom of it, because there's too many times that I trusted my eyes instead of my fingers, and I ended up regretting it. Some issue would manifest itself later in the tillering process that I had been noticing when I was feeling the taper, but I wasn't seeing yet with my eyes on the tillering tree until it was too late. So I've learned to trust if I feel like there's a thick spot, or if I feel like one limb is a lot thicker than the other. I mean, for instance, one thing that I've got going on with this bow is that there's some natural deflex to this top limb, and the bottom limb is much flatter, and that's part of what's contributing to my positive tiller right now. And I have to be careful that I don't just keep whittling away this bottom limb to nothing. Right now my top limb is thicker than my bottom limb, because some of the bend that's happening in this top limb is just because of the natural deflex that this limb has, and so I have to take that into account. I think I'll probably try to heat induce some reflex back into this limb so that they're more balanced out, and that's going to make this limb, the top limb, stronger. And I'll have to do some more scraping on it to get it back in line with the bottom limb, but then the thickness is going to be more balanced between the two. So that's one example of how your eyes can be a little bit deceptive. The bend is looking really good on the tillering tree, but I think that in reality my top limb is thicker and stronger than my bottom limb. So it's either going to need to be bending more than it seems like it should, or I need to straighten it out and see if I can get it to stay straight so that it'll match the profile of the bottom limb a little bit more. And that's just the sort of thing that you run into with self bows from a stave. They're not perfect, and you have to work with the inconsistencies that they offer you and decide what your best route is to take care of them. So I'm going to be taking even scrapes, just like I did before, counting my strokes on one limb, counting my strokes on the other limb, and bracing it and checking the tiller. So I think I'm going to do that process a few more times. I'm not going to make you sit through that and watch it. And then I'll check back in with you after I've made some progress in terms of getting closer to my draw weight and improving the tiller. So I'll check back with you in a bit. So I've done some more work. I ended up inducing a little bit of reflex into the top limb to address the issue that I was telling you about before, where the top limb was thicker, but because of the deflex that it had, it appeared to be doing more work than it actually was. So I heated it up and cranked it back a little bit with a clamp and got it matching the straightness of the bottom limb a little bit better. And sure enough, when I strung up the bow, all that positive tiller that I had was gone, and I needed to take more scrapes off the top limb to weaken it so that it was bending like it should be. And now the thickness of the limbs is a lot more in line. I might get some of that deflex back during the tillering process. You can be a little bit stubborn. It likes to revert back to natural deflex, but I think by the end of the tillering process I might have to heat it up once or twice more, and it should stay where I want it to when all is said and done. But right now I've got the tillers looking good at brace. I've got my positive tiller of about 3/8 inch back, and took a few more measured scrapes off of each limb to weaken the bow a little bit more. And so I'll show you what the tiller's looking like right now at 22 inches. So this is 60 pounds at 22 inches. And you can see the top limb, which is on the right, is bending just a little bit more than the bottom limb. But that's what I want, because the bottom limb is 2 inches shorter than the top limb, and I want it to stay a little bit stiffer. If it was bending as much as the top limb, it would be doing too much work for its length. So from everything that I can tell, I'm feeling pretty pleased with the overall shape of the bend. So I'm just going to press forward. I'm going to take some more scrapes off each side, reduce the weight a little bit more. I'm kind of shooting for about getting another inch of draw length at 60 pounds per scraping session. Sometimes it might be 2 scraping sessions to get that far. Like I said, I want to creep up on it. I don't want to do it all at once. And before long, I'll be at my 28 inches. As you get closer, taking off the same amount of wood is going to have a bigger impact on the strength of the bow. So you got to be careful as you're getting close that you're not taking off too much with each scraping session. This bow's starting to shape up really nicely. I'm looking forward to getting it to full draw and having a chance to shoot it and see how it feels. The next video I'll be finishing the tiller and getting it out to full draw, hopefully. And then we can work on some of the more cosmetic things like the handle and the tip overlays. I hope you're enjoying the series so far, and I hope it's been helpful. Don't hesitate to ask any questions. Good luck with your projects.